welcome to this video. In today's video, we will be building RESTful web services using Apache Camel. So, our agenda, we'll try to understand what are RESTful services, how to use Camel to implement RESTful web services, and as usual, we'll try to do a workshop towards the end. We're going to have a very interesting workshop, okay, and it's going to be a little lengthier one because we'll try to implement some interesting use cases. So, stick with me. So first thing first, what are RESTful web services? So REST stands for Representational State Transfer. This is basically a software architectural style that was created to guide the design and development of the architecture for World Wide Web, or what we call WWW. REST defines a set of constraints for how the architecture of an internet scale distributed hypermedia system such as the web should behave. Any web service that obeys the REST constraints is formally described as RESTful API or RESTful APIs. HTTP-based RESTful APIs are defined with the following aspects: a base URI, such as http://www.sagu.uk. It is HTTPS over here if you are trying to look for this domain of mine. Okay, so standard HTTP methods are uh, get, post, put, and delete. In terms of semantics of these HTTP methods, as name suggests, get means you are trying to get a resource on a given URI. Okay, post means you are trying to create a new resource on the given URI. Okay, put means you are either trying to replace it. If it doesn't exist, create a new one. And delete, as name suggests, you are actually trying to remove that resource or the representation from the server by using this method. So these are the common methods which we use when we are building RESTful web services using HTTP protocol. So again, just from the architectural constraints point of view, there are 6 guiding constraints defines a RESTful system, right? They are client server architecture, statelessness, cacheability, layered system, code on demand. This is optional, which basically telling like, you can download a code or some sort of representation, which is telling how a resource is created on the server side. However, I haven't seen like, people doing it. That's why it's optional thing, and you have to have a uniform interface. All right, how to use Camel to implement RESTful web services. So there are various ways, especially in the Java world, to build RESTful web services. You can use Spring controller, okay, Spring REST controller, that is Spring MVC, and actually you can use very simple servlet as long as you can adhere or you can obey those rules. However, Camel is a new kid in the street, and it really allows you to build these RESTful web services quite easily, and you can still continue using what Camel does best, i.e. the integration, right? I hope you are following my other videos where I have tried to tell what Camel is and what's the use of Camel. Okay, so just sticking to this video, and in this video, as I said, like, we will be building the RESTful services. So Camel has two main flavors to support RESTful services. One is Camel Java DSL, which looks exactly like the other routes or endpoints we have seen, where we have like, from, which is our consumer, and then we have to, which is our producer. What we are saying here is that I would like to consume from this REST API order. This is the API or the endpoint which we are actually publishing, which our client will be submitting the order. But from Camel's vocabulary perspective, this is the endpoint where I will be receiving the data or I will be consuming the data from. Sometimes this can be slightly confusing, but just remember that this is the endpoint which we are publishing. Camel will be picking up the data from here where it's available, and our clients will be publishing data onto that, right? And then what we are saying in two is just whenever I get some orders information on this endpoint, you put it into a GMS queue called orders. Okay, this too can be a database, this can be another REST endpoint, doesn't really matter. Okay, there is another way of writing or doing the same thing, which is called REST DSL. And this REST DSL style is quite declarative, okay, and I quite like it. Reason being because when you're building REST, you're simply saying this is my REST method and this is my context path, and then you can actually specify method. Okay, so you're basically saying rest dot get orders to this thing. So my personal preference is the second option over here. And when I try to build some example using this mechanism, you will realize why I'm saying that thing. Okay, so just moving on, let's try to do a workshop. As I promised, our workshop is going to be slightly longer because we'll try to build some complex use cases using both of these styles. So in this workshop, what we are going to do is we are going to build Java DSL style REST service to get, let's say, some weather details. Okay, and we will also try to build the same service using the REST. Okay, and we also like to maybe enhance the use case. If we get a time, we'll try to save the data. Okay, where are we going to save the data? Maybe we'll try to save the data on some sort of RabbitMQ. Okay, or maybe inside my in memory, right? I'm not going to use any let's say database, etc. And we also like to do some sort of exception handling in a simpler way. Like, so the use case here is when there is no data, then return 404 not found. Okay, that's the right way of representing when the resource is not found on the server. So just read this is 404. Okay, and as I said, like earlier, we will try to publish an event as well. Okay, onto a RabbitMQ. So we are saying whenever there is a new event to save the data, okay, for a city, we like to publish that to a RabbitMQ, so other services, other web services, or other application can pick up that weather information, and maybe they can update it. Suppose, like you have a mobile app, and at server side you get an event, you publish to some topic, so other services can start picking up from there. So hope that sounds really good. So let's just jump on to our editor, and here is our IntelliJ. So first thing first, let's try to build a Java DSL. Okay, as I promised earlier, let's create a class called new Java class. Let's call it REST Java DSL. Okay, quite a simple, straightforward name. Let's just call it. Okay, let's edit. I hope the fonts are visible. I'm going to increase the size a little bit so it's quite clear. I hope that size is good enough for this video. Okay, so as you know, first thing we have to do is we have to declare, because we are building everything in Spring. This is a Spring Boot application, so we're going to declare this as a component, so it can be declared, it can be registered in our Spring bean. Okay, it can be registered as a Spring bean. Okay, hope you remember, when you are building a camel route, first thing you need to do is you need to extend a route builder. All right. Okay, so this is telling me that there is a method which I must implement. So let's call that configure. Perfect. I think our boilerplate is pretty much ready. So going back to the presentation, what we are doing is we are using this style from da 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 to da da da. Okay, so let's just come back over here. Let's start writing some code. So I'm gonna say from, and let's also finish. I'm not gonna send it to anywhere. What I'm simply saying is when a request comes, you have to reply back with the current weather. Okay, so what we will be doing is I'm gonna have something over here, and I'm just gonna process it. What process I'm gonna do over here is I'm gonna go to our data store, and I will try to match a city, okay, and then try to get the data. So this is my expectation over here. I'm going to give a URI to our, let's try to build something like this: HTTP localhost, okay, and we're gonna say port number 8080. I'll tell you where all these things are configured a little later on. And we're gonna say services, um, give me Java DSL. So just to be clear, Java DSL slash weather, and then I'm gonna give a city name over here, right? So let's say our goal is to build this URI like this. So come back over here. So instead of copying and pasting, I'm simply going to copy this bit, Java DSL city. Why am I doing only Java DSL, but why am I not doing services? Reason I'm not doing that services because what I have done in my applications, I have given a default context. This is quite important. It doesn't has to be services or anything. I just gave it services, but you have to define a context path. Okay, so it can be simple as like slash asterisk. What it means is everything you define in Java REST classes, you will be able to fetch or read that URI. But over here, I just put services. Okay, so this services will be prefixed automatically by looking at that context path, which we saw in our application.yaml. Okay, and what is this curly braces doing over here? So we are saying I am going to publish a endpoint, okay, which gonna look something like maybe London or New York, which means this last bit is dynamic, right? So how do I consume these dynamic parameters? Okay, so static I can hard code it as I did Java DSL, whether it's hard coded, it doesn't has to, but I have hard coded it. But I'm saying I like to read this path parameter. Okay, and another thing I'm going to say is my application produces JSON content. Okay, this is my media type. Okay, so I hope you build Java application, sorry, the web application, so you are quite familiar with this syntax. That's the only thing we have to do. Okay, now pro now let's come to our process. Okay, so what we need to do in process, I am saying go to a data store, match my city, and then pull the data. So what I have done is I have created a bean called or data store called weather data provider. Let's just try to understand really quickly what it's simply doing. It just, let's say, in-memory data store. As you can see, I have defined a map over here, key value pair. Key is the city name, and I have value as a DTO or POJO, which I'm storing over here. And what I have done is when I start my system, by default, I am populating it with London, with a city called London. Okay, the reason why I'm doing it, so because I don't have a post method just yet, because we're going to build that later on, but just to prove that our gets are at least working, I am going to by default create a bean. Okay, so it's very simple. Weather DTO, it has a let's just take a look at our DTO. What it simply has, it has a city, it has a temperature, it has a unit, and it has a receive time. So I am expecting my client to send these three details: city, temperature, unit. Receive time will be, I will be injecting that thing. I don't want like no client to send me some fake receive time. I would like to have a control over that. So this is what I'm going to do. So city, our temperature, our unit. Okay, receive time, I'm just saying whenever the server was started. All right. So I put it into weather data.put London. I have two methods over here. One is saying get current weather. What it simply does, it goes over this map. Whatever the city name you give, it uppercases. Okay, so just to make sure, like, doesn't matter what client gives us, they can send like, capital letter London or maybe lowercase London or maybe mixed cases, doesn't really matter. But we ultimately want to match with one common key. Okay, so what I'm simply doing is I am going to store all these things as capital, as you noticed over here. So that's why I'm converting to uppercase and trying to pull that value from my map. Very simple stuff going on over here. I'm not going to any external service or external data store, okay, because that's not our goal over here. Goal over here, our goal over here is to build a REST service and try to get the data out. Okay, so in my process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a method. Let's build a method first outside, because otherwise our process is gonna look very clumsy and I don't really like it. I like to say, you know what, you go and call some method called get weather data. All right, um, and that should just do that for me. So if I, and now it's going to show me red, so I can press this thing and I say, okay, create this exchange. Okay, so in exchange, now what I need to do is, very first thing I need to do from my exchange is ask for this parameter. This parameter will be stored in a header of exchange. Okay, so these are those few things like, you have to learn about Camel, how where will this thing will be stored. So anything you see on this from, they typically go on a header. Okay, because these are header from Camel's perspective. So let's say exchange dot get message. Okay, because everything will be stored in a message, and then I'm saying give me this header called city, because this is the variable name I'm expecting over here, right? You can define as a constant, doesn't really matter. And I'm expecting this. So the beauty with camel method is like, you can actually ask it to what data type it should be. You can give any complex object. If you don't give it, it's going to return object, and then we'll have to typecast it. But with this way, it's going to internally typecast it, and it's going to return me a string. So nice use of this generics over here, right? Let's declare a local variable. Okay. Okay, so what I have done is I've got my city over here. Let's go to our next line. No, what another thing we have to do is, if you remember, this weather data provider is a component I have declared as a component, so we need to inject this component, right? I could have made these things all static and I could have got it, but let's not do that right now. Let's simply say I have private, only if I can type it, private weather data provider. Okay, and that's the variable name. Now what I want it to do is I can auto wire it, but auto wire is not a right or recommended way. So I would like to do the right way, which is basically add a constructor parameter. Okay, beauty of IntelliJ, like, it makes you lazy. You really don't need to remember anything. Okay, so we got our injection happening over here, which means I've got this bean. Now what I simply need to do is I go to this bean weather data provider, and I will say get current weather. Remember the method we saw earlier, and we're gonna pass city into it. Cool. So first thing first, let's do one thing. Let's just set this message which is returned over here, and then later on we'll do the exception handling. Okay, so I've got my current weather. How you set this, how do you return this current weather to our client? We will have to set that into our exchange message. So first we're gonna do is we're gonna say build a new message, and we're gonna say do a new default message. Yeah, and this message which takes exchange dot context. Yeah, so it's gonna take my context, so it can associate with this exchange context. After that, I'm gonna say message dot set body current weather. All right, and we have to ultimately say exchange dot set message. Okay, I have to find some shortcuts. That would be nice, because this is a lot of boilerplate, like, two, three things line going on over here. That's it. That's it. We are done. So what we did here in 3-4 lines, we went to our DAO, data access object, let's call it, nice fancy name, and we asked it to give the data for a given city over here. I've got my DTO, and I am ready to return this DTO to our client. How I did it, I quickly built a message object. I did message.set, and it's done. Right. Okay. So let's save the file, even though it should be by default save. One more thing we need to do is over here, I have to specify what is my out type. If I don't do that, it might give me some sort of, either problem or some sort of, string representation of that. I like to return as a JSON, because that's what we are telling our client, that I produce JSON. So if you simply say out type whether DTO.class, Camel will do all the, marshalling or, serialization correctly for us. All right. So I am looking over here. I'm just going to minimize the screen because I'm struggling to go up and down. Okay, perfect. So I think everything is looking good. Our REST services is good. Now let's just try to run our application. Okay, it's saying no endpoint could be found for blah, blah, blah. Please check your class path contains the camel component jar. Okay, let's just do one thing. What one more thing we have to do, and I forgot to do is, which is good, we have to put some dependencies, right? We have to put our dependency called camel, camel rest. I have camel rest starter here. Okay, just in case, let me check on the error. Let's see one error one more time. So I said from Java DSL. All right. If you remember, every endpoint should have a component name, because what we try to do here is we forgot to give the component name. So camel cannot resolve it, right? So I just gave rest, then colon, and then my rest of the URI. Okay. I think these type of errors are always good because then you learn something. If this error had not happened, we probably maybe wouldn't learn it, right? Another thing we have to do is, and that's the reason I don't like this particular style, you have to now specify the method name as well. So again, good learning. So we are saying REST component, this is my method, and this is my endpoint. All right. Third time lucky, are we going to be? Hopefully. Yay. Okay, we got it. Now, as you can see, it's saying it has published a servlet because at the end of the day, everything gets compiled or gets built into servlet architecture only. These are all like sugar syntax or like all these abstract things. Okay, which is good. You don't have to deal with like lower level servlet, which is the beauty of AI. So it's basically telling me this endpoint has been published. Okay, and system is running on port 8080 by default. Okay, not by default because I may have specified somewhere over here. Probably not. You can actually specify, otherwise it's gonna run on 8080 by default. How do I invoke the endpoint? I can actually go to browser, I can do curl, but I'm gonna use Postman. Okay, it's easier, you'll see the result and then I don't have to kind of repeat again and again. Let's try to run London. If we get lucky, we'll get perfect. See, I've got 200 DTO. So there is still some sort of problem. It's not able to produce JSON. Okay, and that was the problem I was telling you. So I think we'll have to find out later on, but we are not going to spend a lot of time on this style anyways, because that's not my favorite style. We're going to look at the other one. But the point proven here is that we have weather DTO, okay, which is returning this. Now, if I try to run some, foo city, let's say London foo, for example, it's saying 204 no content, but that's not the right thing. What our use story was saying, I would like to return 404. So what can we do here is we can do very simple thing. I can say if objects non-null, okay, this current weather, then you do this. Otherwise, what we want to do is, otherwise we want to return 404. So how do you do that? You say exchange, again, very simple, get message, and this time we're going to set a header. All these type of things goes on header. And I'm going to say HTTP response code. All right. Okay. HTTP response code. Yeah, that seems to be correct. Why is it not finding it? It should be finding in the exchange. So maybe I should import it. Let's see if it can find it. Oh, yeah, it found it. And I am saying, give me HTTP status dot not found. Remember, these util classes are super useful. You don't have to hard code 404 or whatever, and it makes readability quite nice. Okay, so I know I'm returning response code called not found. Let's just restart our application. So just remember what we were returning earlier. We were returning 204, no content, which is fine. Okay, that's not a problem. But REST typically says, if I cannot locate a resource, you should be giving me 404. No content would have been, I have found the resource, but it doesn't have any data. That 204 would make much more sense. But what we are saying over here is, I have a complete, bogus URI. So I should be returning 404 ultimately. Let's try doing right now. And I've got 500. It's saying weather DTO with original converter stream, blah, 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 not found. Okay, why is that? get message set header. Is it because it's not able to produce input stream? Okay, looks like we don't have the right converter over here because it's expecting it to do the marshalling. Let's just park this thing over here because we don't really need to spend any time on this, otherwise we'll be wasting a lot of time to debug this. Let's jump on to the main thing which I wanted to showcase over here, because we have to build quite a few use cases. So what we wanted to use was this style, REST DSL. That's my favorite. Okay, let's just directly do that. If you get a chance, we'll try to resolve this issue. All right, so let's come over here and then try to build a class called, what shall we call it? We can simply call it REST DSL. Okay, let's call it REST DSL. Okay, because that's what we are ultimately doing it. Okay, this is component. This is my component. I'm gonna extend root builder. Root builder. Come on. All right, and let's. Okay, same steps I'm repeating. You remember from the previous exercise. Okay, okay. There we go. What we have to do now is we have to say REST. My favorite. Okay, I was dying to use this. I'm gonna say I consume. Actually, there is a media type. I could use it. Let's see if it's available in my media type. Media type. That should be fine. Do I have application JSON? There we are. See? Yeah. Okay. So application JSON dot value or something. And I'm saying I produce same thing. So I consume JSON, I produce JSON. Okay. Now, the next thing what we have to do is we have to say I want to get something. And how do I do with my get? I'm gonna say whether, and rest of the syntax is same. If you remember from the previous one, this is our dynamic path parameter which we are going to consume. Okay, and we are going to say the same thing over here, that my output type is going to be whether DTO dot class. And let's send this to a root so we can have a clear implementation. Otherwise, actually, you know what? We'll do the refactoring later on. Let's do the process. Okay, so yeah, with this one, you have to actually build a tiny root over here, because this REST component or this style doesn't have a way of accessing process. So you have to basically add root, and then you can carry on with. That's why I was thinking of, like, sending it to another root, but we're gonna do the refactoring little later on. So we said out type is this. This is my root, and I'm going to process. If you remember what we did in the previous thing, we can actually copy paste this stuff over here, because ultimately it's same thing, 100% same after that. Okay, so in this process, I'm going to call this get weather data. That's it. And if you remember, we have to inject this thing. Okay, and again, the right way is constructor based injection. There we are. I think everything is working as expected. Have I missed out anything? So let's just quickly walk through what we did. We wrote this class, we extended root builder, we injected our data provider, we we are building our root, first root. I'm saying I consume JSON, I produce JSON. Okay, right now I'm not consuming any JSON because the request is coming on the path parameter, but as I promised, we'll try to create a post request to save the data as well. Okay, so over here I'm saying uh, services slash weather slash city. Just remember, I have removed Java DSL, which I did in my previous one. Okay, So we can have unique endpoints, okay, or URIs. Otherwise, system gonna complain. Um, uh, and then I'm consuming this parameter dynamically. I'm saying I generate weather DTO. That's good. And I'm saying send it to this route and get weather data inside process. And process is simply going back to the exchange, extracting out the city, going to the data provider is asking for this thing. Okay, it's saying if it's non-null, you submit to this thing. If it is null, uh, write not found. Simple stuff, right? Let's restart our Camel application. Hope it works. Yes, it started. Okay, so let's go to our, so what I said earlier is I'm going to call localhost 8080 services, weather, and London. This is my get, or this is my URI. I'm going to call this URL using get, send. There we are. Got it. Beautiful. One thing, I think the reason it's not printing this thing, I was just trying to remind myself what could be the reason that it's not able to um, give us the proper JSON. Okay, maybe we do need to register this thing. It's called binding mode auto. Okay, you can actually do binding mode um, yeah, model rest. That is the ultimate thing. I hope that fixes our problem because I'm a bit annoyed by the fact it's not giving me the pretty JSON. I believe that is the reason that you have to bind it. If it works, good. If it doesn't work, maybe we'll try to sort out later on. Okay, I have restarted my server. Ah, thank God. Okay, I was just getting a bit annoyed and worried that why it was not working. So what did we do over here? We said register this binding mode. Okay, so that binding mode is now going to basically apply these things which we are saying over here, right? We didn't earlier bind it. Okay, so output type, this thing, all these things will only work if you have this thing. If I put the same thing in my Java REST DSL as well, just to see, okay, there's no reason it wouldn't work either. If we come to our this thing, let's make sure this works. Go to the Java DSL style. Okay, remove this London, sorry, foo thing. Okay, this is still not happy. Let's not waste our time. Move on. Okay, what's the second thing we want to do? Now we managed to get the data. Okay, now I like to build or enhance this service so I can start saving the data too. How does that sound? Okay, perfect. Let's just do that. Okay, so I want to do a little bit of refactoring at this point. Reason being, it will make our life a little bit easier. So let's build another route. So we can say, you know what? Whenever I get this thing, you send it to something called direct. Okay, uh, and let's call it get weather data. This is a camel route I'm building. So if you're not following my earlier videos, what we are simply doing is we are building another route. Okay, and we are saying from. So whenever request comes on this from, what we really want to do is we want to process this thing. Okay, so same thing goes over here. So I don't need root now. I'm saying instead of doing the previous way, you do this way. Okay, this makes life much easier when we have like more complex routes. So you want to have a tiny things like which you can manage quite easily. All right, so I've got this thing over here. Let's just quickly spin our server just to make sure we have not broken anything. That's quite ultimate thing because I don't have unit test to test it, so I'm gonna manually test everything. uh, yeah, everything is working, like nothing is broken, but at least we managed to refactor our code. Now Second thing we want to do is we want to save the data. So remember what we do in the RESTful web services world? We use post method. So let's say post, and how post should be working? Post will be saying whether. We don't need to specify the city over here because that can be part of the payload. You can do that, but I'm saying whether is a common resource where you will be creating all the resources and your payload should be containing that information. All right. So if you remember earlier we said out type and we have something called in type, but that's just called type. Okay. That basically tells what sort of DTO or what sort of, you know, payload is coming and where you would like to deserialize it to. Okay. So we are saying you populate this weather DTO class. And same thing, let's just create another endpoint. So it kind of mimics what we are doing above. I'm going to say direct. Let's say save weather data. Come on, sometimes these things. Direct save data. Okay, we got that. Very simple. So what we have done here, we have got get. Now we are building post. I'm just going to move this to one line, even though like no, it should be broken, so I can just copy, duplicate this thing. That was the whole idea. Save weather data. So we are saying when post request on weather comes, you send it to this route, and this route, what is going to do is going to say, let's call it save weather data and set to exchange. So we can actually return to our client as well. Shall we just call that? Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. So this is our predicate or method which we are invoking. And in the post, what I'm going to simply do is I'm going to call our good friend exchange and ask it to give me a body get message dot body. Okay. And what are we expecting in this body? We are expecting this DTO. Okay. Because that's what we defined on line number 36. That's right. Okay. Let's store it to local variable. Good to have like, know these shortcuts. All right. So now what we simply need to do is, where is our weather data provider? We are asking our weather data provider to set this current city, and we're going to pass this. I want to call it DTO because that's not the entire body. It's been transformed to DTO now. All right. So far, so good. What set current weather is going to do is going to take this DTO, okay, and it's going to create a new date. Do you remember we said earlier we would like to have a control how we save the received time, and that's exactly what I'm doing over here. And then I'm going to put into this map, and again just remember I'm converting the city name to uppercase. So just in case if like I get another request with New York but lowercase, we don't mess up and don't get confusion, right? So I just want to have city is city, doesn't matter what case client is sending. Okay, so at this point, I think this is looking good. Let's just start our server. Okay, so our server is looking good. Go to our postman. Let's first try to get London is coming or not. London is coming. That's good. I'm going to take this payload, right? Why I'm taking this payload? Because that's exactly what I'm going to submit. But I'm going to submit the truncated version or the subset of it. So let's go to our postman tab. I've been playing with this thing. So I'm going to call a method post and I'm going to publish it over here services. If you can see in the background, this is where we are publishing, right? Weather, simply weather. And then I'm going to send this payload. City, New York, temperature 22 centigrade. Please forgive me if you're watching from States. I'm not using Fahrenheit. Okay, I cannot do the conversion from Celsius to Fahrenheit that quickly. Maybe 22 might be, I don't know, 70 Fahrenheit or something. Please, as I said, forgive me. Okay, let's try to submit this payload. Okay, beautiful. So what we have done, we just created a, some data on the server side. How do I know that? One, if you remember, I actually submitted these three fields, but server has said to me, it has given some sort of unique ID, which doesn't matter, but it just, the point we are trying to prove is that, okay, this has come from server. Um, receive time, server received at this time. Now, how do I actually confirm that, okay, I have this information on the server side now? So I'm gonna call this URI now, this URL actually. Remember difference between URI and URL? URI would be this thing. URL becomes as soon as you have a method. Okay, I hope I'm correct. Okay, if not, please put a comment and just correct me or give me more information on that. So let's say if I pull New York now, boom, I've got this information. Perfect, isn't it? Now let's say you can say like, okay, this might be giving the wrong information. Let's try New Delhi. New Delhi is returning 404. Why? Because I don't have a New Delhi. What we can do is we can go here and we can say New Delhi, right? Now let's create New Delhi right now. This is July. It's shivering cold in London, but I think it's boiling hot in Delhi. Let's put 48 degrees centigrade. Okay, it's hot there. I've heard from my friends. Submitted. Cool. We got data created. So if I come back to New Delhi now, what we saw earlier, we were getting 404, but we managed to create this information at the server side. If I call this thing again, there we are. ID got incremented. I've got New Delhi, 48 degrees centigrade, receive time, blah, blah, blah. Nice, isn't it? So what we have achieved so far, we built, let's go back to our presentation, just give a little pause here, okay, and just try to remind what we have done. We built Java DSL style REST service to get weather. We built REST DSL style service to get weather. Okay, and now we managed to save the data as well. Beautiful. We've done the point number 4 as well. When there is no data, then return. You know what? This thing is annoying me. Why don't we fix the presentation? 404. Sweet. I like that. So when there is no data, return 404, not found. We proven that as well. Also publish an event to RabbitMQ. How hard that can be. Let's do that. Let's do that. Okay, so I have my Docker over here, but I don't have RabbitMQ running. So let's first try to run our RabbitMQ. So I'm gonna bring a console over here. I'm gonna go to my cheat sheet, okay, because I have that thing over here. So what I'm going to do is I have downloaded RabbitMQ image already. I'm just going to start it like this. So while it's starting, what we are simply saying is run Rabbit UI with server and UI mode. Okay, go back to my previous video where we had a full half an hour session on RabbitMQ. Over here, let's not spend any more time. Simply let's quickly go to our browser and see if Rabbit is up and running. Yep, Rabbit is up. It doesn't have any queues. Okay, so what we are going to do is, I hope it works. If it fails, then maybe we'll have to do. Let's do one thing. What we are saying is, whenever the save request comes, publish an event. What I really do not want to do is, I do not want to, because when I'm calling external service that can have some sort of performance impact. So what I can do is, I can use a pattern called wiretap. Wiretap, as soon as request comes, it kind of spawns off another thread, and your original root or request will carry on. Go back to my previous video again, like we have spoke about wiretap in length. So what we're going to do is we're going to publish event on RabbitMQ. So how do we do that? So as I promised, let's call our, where is my code? Over here. Let's now go to the next line. So I have managed to save data, and this point I will be returning the request to client. What I want to do is, after all this thing is done, publish an event to RabbitMQ. So I'm saying wiretap it and wiretap it to some, let's call it event to Rabbit. Okay, very simple. We created another route, but we have created wiretapped route. Oops. Okay, so same thing again. We have to just remember always from to. So from, and this has to match this thing over here. Okay, and let's call it right to Rabbit. Okay, because that's exactly what we're doing. Oh man, come on. Yeah, that's better. So right to Rabbit. So this is not going to do anything. What we have to do is we have to send it to a Rabbit URL. Again, Rabbit itself has its URL. What I did from my previous video, I have got something called Rabbit URI. Okay, so whenever you have to connect to Rabbit, this is how it looks like. RabbitMQ, this is our component name. This is my exchange. I have a full video on that, so I'm not going to spend time explaining that. And then I'm publishing to a queue. Okay, so let's just copy this constant from here. This is all-purpose constant. Yep, import. And what shall we call it? Shall we call it weather event? Yeah, let's call it weather event. This queue will be dynamically created, so that's the beauty of it, right? And this is our routing key. That should do it, but it's not gonna do it. What one more thing which we have to do is, so I've got this DTO, but we will not be able to directly write DTO. What we have to do is we have to marshal it. Okay, we'll have to marshal it into a JSON format, and then we'll be able to write it. So what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to say, you know what, before you submit, you marshal it. And in order to marshal, how do you marshal it? You JSON it, marshal into JSON format. Okay, and then we'll say JSON library dot Jackson should be fine. And you convert this DTO to JSON. Okay, I hope that's exactly what it means. Without much effort. When I say much effort, I didn't have to, do a lot of stuff in order to write to RabbitMQ. What I simply did, I created just another route and I have started publishing these events using wiretap. That's the beauty of Camel. You can see how clean and concise our code is, and we are able to now kind of, build entire complex use case where we are publishing an event to an external service and using a thread pool basically without impacting the performance of the existing workflow. It's a very complex stuff, but Camel makes all this thing like super easy. I hope everything just going to work. Let's just restart our server. Fingers crossed it's gonna work. Okay, if everything is good, if I go back to my Rabbit, oh perfect, I've got my queue. Remember, it was not there, we did not create it, Camel did it for us. Okay, let's go to our Postman. Okay, what we did for Delhi, if I say Delhi, there is nothing, it's 404. So what we will have to do first, we'll have to store the data, right? And when we store the data, it will be stored in the local data store, as well as an event should be published, I hope. Boom. So this thing got created really quickly over here. Okay, and if I try to poll this thing, yes, it's working now. And let's go back to our Rabbit. Boom, I've got one event over here. How cool is that? Let's just see if it's just lying or it really got something. Nice. How cool is that? We got Delhi published on RabbitMQ. This is clever stuff, guys. This is clever stuff. That's the beauty of Camel. All right, so have we achieved everything what we wanted to do? Let's just go back to our workshop agenda. Yes, we built the applications, we saved the data, we returned the 404 as well, and ultimately we managed to publish to our RabbitMQ. Hope you liked the video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Plus, give me your valuable feedback. What sort of videos you like to see on this channel. All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you in next video. Bye bye.